We're back for the 6th episode of Fall Guys University, and today I'll be showing you how to win on the map Hexaring. Hexaring is the first final that we've reviewed. It's a combination of two other finals, Hexagon and Roll-Off. This is a Season 7 or Season 1 F2P map, free to play. This map times out at 5 minutes. Everyone who's still alive at the 5-minute mark will win a crown. This map is unique as the size is proportional to the amount of beans in the final. This means if there are 2 beans, it's really small, and if there's 15 beans, it's much larger. They changed both the speed and size of it after release because it used to move faster at the beginning and it was the same size every time. The ring is approximately 36 hexes around. The first cycle takes approximately 1 minute. I timed it at 55 seconds, and every cycle after that takes approximately 30 seconds, give or take a few seconds. The first half of this video will be some basic things you should know to stay alive to try to last as long as possible. The second half, I'll cover tips, tricks, eliminating players, and an assortment of things that'll help you win. Hexaring is a map that consists of 3 hexagon layers in the shape of a ring. These hexes spin clockwise every time and start at the same speed and increase over time. It starts off pretty slow enough to run back and forth at the beginning. Most of the time, you will be running the opposite direction the hexes are moving. There are 2 main strategies at the beginning. Run in front of everyone in a zigzag pattern without having to jump, or jumping from hex tile to hex tile. You can do this by being in front of everyone or a little further back. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. The first rotation should not be an issue. Before the 1 minute mark, all you should be trying to do is not get near anyone. This means you may need to slow down or speed up. Just be careful, because if you go too far forward, you'll slide off the edge, and if you go too far back, you'll fall off the back. If you get near anyone, just be careful not to hit the edge of a hex, as they can be pretty brutal when it comes to the collision physics. Desync can also be pretty nasty, so it's just best to avoid others if you can. After the 1 minute mark, you'll come across your first set of missing tiles. This part really depends on how many tiles the lobby or yourself have taken out. This is when you will start jumping from tile to tile. Before we go into pathing, let's look at how far you can jump on this map, as distance can be quite deceiving. There are 4 different jumps on this map: a normal jump dive, a gamer jump, and a god jump. The normal jump is a jump without a dive that can skip up to 1 tile forward and 1 tile to the side where you land on your feet. A normal jump dive is where you can skip up to 2 tiles straight forward and 1 tile over. A gamer jump is a little more difficult, and that's skipping 3 tiles straight forward. You have to be very precise with your movement and placement. A god jump is skipping 3 tiles straight forward and 1 to the side. Your movement and placement must be perfect. You can also jump up to 3 tiles to the side as well. I believe you can actually jump 4 tiles straight forward if you are on a blue tile jumping to a red tile. You can also do this nifty ninja flip. I like to split the map into 3 sections: left, middle, and right. I would just focus on 1 section at a time. If you are on the right, try to stick to the right until you are absolutely sure there is no path on the right. Usually, paths will start to completely disappear after the second rotation. So the first rotation is pretty much just chilling and staying away. The second rotation is, do I still have a path available? On the third rotation, you'll likely have to make a decision. Is there still a path on my section, or did I run everything out? If there's no path, move over to the middle or left. Once you're comfortable with your movement and how far you can jump, you'll want to conserve tiles. This is how you should prioritize tiles if you are trying to conserve. Jump on blue first, then yellow, then red. The reason is because you can last as long as you have red tiles. It's also easier to jump from a higher layer to a lower layer than it is to jump from a lower layer to a higher layer. You don't want a bunch of 3 stacks at the end that will make your jump significantly more difficult. When you start your second pass, you want to start to skip tiles. Instead of running it down, start jumping. The easiest way to do this is to use the checkerboard strat. This is because it's a little harder to jump straight ahead without tripping the tile in front of you. So you want to use 2 columns right next to each other. You'll jump up 1 hex and over 1 hex. Up 1 hex, over 1 hex. This is the easiest and simplest way to move on this map. You can conserve more with a jump dive, but we'll dive into that later. This becomes real important towards the end of the match, as it can easily be the difference between winning and losing. You should do your best to hit as little tiles as possible. A jump dive may be the only way to continue your path. Just be careful here, because you're moving a much further distance, so you can easily jump too far forward. Getting this down may take a lot of practice, and if you're not very mechanically inclined, you may have to stick with normal jumps until you've improved. Now let's go over the most common mistakes made. The most common is players getting on the back side of the ring. Once you get on the back side of the ring, you need to run, not jump. You need to either continue running to make up ground to hit the midpoint, or you need to jump up and over 1 hex and then continue running. The more times you jump, the more likely you are to get eliminated. There's only 1 exception to the back side of the ring, and that's if you no longer have a path, but I'll cover that at the end of this section. Another common mistake is running too far forward. If you feel like you are starting to slide off, try to run back up. If you are already sliding, try to catch yourself in the hole of a lower tiered tile. You may need to move sideways to do this. If done correctly, this can save you. Avoid the very outer edge. If you run on the outer edge, just know you can get pushed off the side. Avoid running behind other players. The tiles don't immediately disappear, but when they do, you can get yeeted backwards in a ridiculous fashion, so it's best to not run right behind someone. Care when you are jumping a gap, as you can get pantsed. Don't full pop a bean. Your jump is momentarily disabled when you full pop, and being able to jump in transition layers is crucial. You don't want to bump into a hex when running forward or to the side, and don't jump immediately after if you do. You'll likely do a side flip or ragdoll. You also don't want to dive into a higher layer hex or you'll ragdoll. Another strategy that could help you win is to cut off other beans. You can start running 2 columns down fully so other beans cannot come over to you. You'll need to do this twice, and a good player will recognize this. So it's not the most practical, but if you're able to pull it off, it's an easy win for you. There's one thing to note. If you're running down 2 columns, your bean will appear to stutter a little. Just be wary of this, as it usually isn't enough to affect you, but the weird physics can make you momentarily stop, so be ready to react quickly. There's an advanced cutoff method I'll discuss in the second half of this video. There are a number of ways to eliminate someone on this map. The first one is running in front of them so they get yeeted back by the tiles as they disappear. Another way is to push a bean off the side. You can pant someone as they try to jump over a gap. You can grab a bean as they are about to jump up a level. Cutting off their path is also very effective. The final way is desyncing someone or body blocking them. For the end game, when there aren't any paths left, instead of running as far forward as you can, you want to run further back towards the midpoint or even a little further back than that. If you can, jump sideways to another tile. Your goal is to jump on the furthest tile forward at the latest point possible. If you're too far forward, you will fall quicker than if you waited another second or two further back, where you can still hit the tile without sliding right off. This will allow you to get an extra jump off and the win. If you start sliding backwards, you may be able to catch yourself on a lower layered tile. Sometimes you can get a jump off here too, but the catch itself may be enough to win. Being able to swivel your camera on this map is extremely important. When you are trying to land on exact tiles, having your camera behind your beam but looking straight from above is best. When you need to anticipate what tiles are coming up, you'll want to swivel your camera to the side. You want to use a mixture of these depending on where you're at in the match. You also want to swivel your camera to the side and even behind you to see what paths are available and not available. Now that we can stay alive, let's go over some advanced tactics. There's an even more efficient way to conserve tiles than checkerboard strat, and that's to throw in a jump dive. This isn't easy to do on the first cycle, as it's typically a full blue layer, and you're more than likely to trip extra tiles since they are on the same level. It becomes easier to do after the first cycle. You'll want to jump dive up 2 hexes and over 1. You want to go over 1 for the same reason you use the checkerboard strat. This just makes it easier to not trip more than the tile you're aiming for. This method allows you to skip even more tiles, and if done correctly, it can give you an extra cycle or 2. You'll want to combine these methods, but it's very lobby dependent. You could have perfect tile conservation, but if there's another bean running your path, they may eat up all your tiles. There are a few cheeky strategies you can use. The first is to use the beginning to make a hole in the left, right, or middle section. If you do this, you can catch a better player off guard if they aren't prepared. The other is to use the second or third rotation to run a path or section out completely, and then to transition to the other side, knowing there isn't anywhere to go where you just came from. Again, this can help you catch a better player off guard if they aren't paying attention. Keep in mind this can be done against you, so pay attention to the other beans. You can use the second rotation to run out any red tiles, so it's more difficult to navigate around the map. This is a risk-reward option. You'll be dealing with a lot more holes and places to fall, but if your mechanics are better, this may benefit you more. In fact, once you get comfortable enough, you'll use the first and second rotation to judge players and figure out where there is a path and where there isn't. This is crucial at higher levels, as the end can get very crazy when there are still 8 beans alive at the end. If you are playing in a more skilled lobby, it's very likely you'll have to proactively eliminate a bean or 2. The easiest way is to run in front of another bean to try to get them to get knocked back by the tiles disappearing and the layer difference. Don't just run in front of them the same direction they are running. A good player will change directions when this happens, so unexpectedly change directions yourself, thus catching them off guard. If that doesn't work, getting near them to put pressure on them can do the trick. Sometimes a bean will try so hard to get in front of you, they will fall off the front side. Pants the beans jumping over a gap. This is an effective way to eliminate them, as most players are focused on surviving so they won't grab you. This is a perfect time to be proactive. Just be careful, because if you are close enough to grab them, they're close enough to grab you. Since this is a newer map, unfortunately there are a handful of bugs. There is an elimination bug where you just simply get eliminated. You're on a tile and you just get eliminated. You can also fall through where hexes meet each other when you shouldn't be able to. Desync can be pretty bad on this map since you're moving. Your bean can die in midair. And lastly, you can trip a tile without actually hitting it, especially if your ping is higher. Let's review how to stay alive. There are 2 starting techniques we went over. Know how far you can dive and jump dive. To keep it simple, break the paths up into 3 sections. Conserving tiles will get you wins, so practice this. Cut off other beams to gain an advantage. Avoid this list of things, as these are the typical ways to get eliminated. If there aren't any paths available, don't run as far forward. You want to be further back, and you want to jump sideways to tiles. Lastly, swiveling your camera will help you with your precision and anticipation. For the advanced review, conserve tiles. Hit as few tiles as possible and practice this. Use cheeky strats to help you win by running out certain sections at calculated points in the match. Use the first minute and a half to judge the lobby and the pathways. Swivel your camera behind you after a rotation to update yourself on what routes are and aren't available. Learn how to eliminate players and how you can be eliminated. This is a new map, so there's going to be bugs. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out. What map or maps would you like to see next? Let me know in the comment section. No. Jesus, how long is it going to take to come back? Gosh. There's nowhere on that other side to go. I'm so freaking good. Holy. How did I stay alive there?